Yo, what's going on? This is Scoot Henderson, and you're catching the breeze on the Blazers balcony with Brooke, Olzendam, and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers balcony presented by Spirit Mountain Casino, episode 140 of the Blazers balcony presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm your co-host, Casey Holdahl. I'm here joined by my co-host and friend, Brooke Olzendam. We are here on the campus of Tulane University. I probably should have remembered what the name of the gym is, but I've already forgotten.
It's Gary Court.
Gary Court on the campus of Tulane University, the Green Wave, which an elite mascot looking, or I don't even know if that counts as the mascot, but just like the little wave guy.
It's cute.
Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's a good logo.
I like the colors too.
I do too.
Yeah,
It's a nice green.
We're currently looking over the practice courts.
Yes, this is one of our podcasts, as we do from time to time, where we record from practices. No, obviously not inside the practice, but as
we're
Brooke
on
mentioned,
our own balcony.
we are on our own balcony. That's true. This is the balcony. We should be doing the Statler and whatever thing when we're looking over and being like,
Hey, look at you guys.
You're terrible. Yeah. So yeah, we are here in New Orleans, Trailblazers and us, I guess we're Trailblazers kind of too, arriving after spending 3 nights in the Detroit suburbs and finishing off this 5-game trip with the back-to-back New Orleans Pelicans on Wednesday and then the Dallas Mavericks on Thursday. But a pretty good road trip so far, as I mentioned, 3 games in. Started with a close loss to the Lakers in Los Angeles, moved on to a fun win versus Damian Lillard and the Bucks in Milwaukee, and then a close loss in a very entertaining game to the Pistons in Detroit. So first up, before we get all the way into it, Brooke, how you doing?
I'm good. Well, I'm better than I was, as Casey knows. I have a bad back. I always have. Scoliosis for life. Shout out to all my fellow scoliosis.
Are your scolios?
Scully Club. And I had just the weirdest thing in my lower back. And I think it has to do with the cold, with a lot of travel, a lot of sitting. But it's never been the lower back. So that just kind of exploded a couple days ago. And I want to give our staff, our medical staff and PTs a huge shout out because they were wonderful. Dr. Courtney and then Kris, just amazing. They were very helpful, which is I always feel weird asking.
Yeah.
Because they have so much on their plate with players, obviously. But they were bent over backwards to help me, and I really appreciate it. So I'm on the mend. I had some treatment, which, wow, I think I died and came back.
I was hoping you were going to mention the treatment because it sounds like it was quite
I cried
quite
the whole
harrowing.
Time.
Yeah.
I cried the whole time. I'm not kidding. I was telling my mom, it's one of those when you go get a massage, right? And it's feeling great, you're feeling wonderful. And then there's that one place where they push really hard and you're just like, oh gosh, I hope this ends, really soon. They move on to like the more relaxing parts. It was that times 2 hours.
Just 2 hours worth of that. Good grief.
But all good. The goal was to, get through that, and he knows what he's doing. He is mighty. I'll just say that. He's strong, very strong. And but I felt like I accomplished something just laying there getting it done because I got through it. I never said stop. I never said, well, that's a little too hard. I just took it and for the betterment of myself. And yesterday was a very sore day. Today I can feel it's like everything's breaking up and we're moving past it. I can walk without every time. So the beginning of this trip wasn't the best, but I'm on the mend. And thank you for asking. And Casey's probably really tired of hearing about this.
No. I actually didn't know if you were going to mention it because, some people when it comes to ailments.
I broke my jaw.
I know you do, but I just didn't when I was asking you how you were doing. Immediately when I said that to you, I was like, you should have prefaced it before we hit record, saying you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But I know you generally are, but I didn't. I just want to make sure that your medical issues are your own if you want them to be. So.
If you know me, I have a bad back. I always have. If I haven't talked about it on the podcast, I have scoliosis so badly that I had to wear the big Boston back brace my 9th grade year, my freshman year of high school. Like, come on, I have braces. I hadn't figured out how to do my hair because I have naturally curly hair, so I just brushed it out in hopes it would get straighter. That didn't work. So I'm straight out of Romeo and Michelle's, was it reunion or whatever that's
high school reunion,
where she had the back brace and I didn't have headgear. It's the one thing I did not have. But it just was a lot.
I feel like headgear by the time we were adolescents had mostly kind of gone away. What a mean thing to do. Yeah. Like making someone, and if you're wearing headgear right now, all the support in the world. Yeah. But but if you are wearing headgear right now, I'm guessing you're like, yes, this sucks. It's terrible. It's one of those things where it's like, how do we figure out that this was the option we're going to use until something better comes along? You have to wear this thing connected to your head. It
was brutal.
I don't have great teeth. I would have just said, I've just been like, these chiclets are just going to have to do because I'm not wearing a head thing for whatever long it takes. So,
and now that you say that, I really can't recall the last time I ever saw one wear. I mean, since I was
you don't
younger,
see it very often. Yeah,
so,
I mean,
maybe they have figured out a way to not put children or anyone through that. I guess whatever age you can have that year. But anyways, so that was my 9th grade year. It was brutal, and ever since it's just like a nagging thing. You know, at certain times I pull my shoulders, and then I would do that at least 3 or 4 times a year, and that's really painful. But I figured out how to maneuver and all that. But the lower back was new, so just the joys of getting older, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Brooke's like, are we old now? I was like, well, you know, we are getting older. Like, I wouldn't say we're old per se. I don't feel old.
I don't feel old,
but
either.
We are getting older. I mean, you know.
Well, it's just like how unfortunate. You're like, Brooke, how you doing? And I'm like, well, I hurt my back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was basically wishing for death for
48 hours.
I mean, again, like the fact that you stuck out that massage, because I remember I haven't had many massages in my life, but when we were in New York that time, we went and got that one, and then I went and got a foot massage because my foot was just killing me. And it was like a half-hour massage. And even half-hour, I was like, I might have to tell this woman to stop because like this really hurt. And yeah, like definitely like you well up a little bit from time to time. And that was a half hour. If it was 2 hours, I would have tapped out, no question. Like I'd have been like, hey, I really appreciate you guys' help. I'm so grateful for it, but we got to stop. I can't do this anymore.
I was just so grateful that he was taking the time to do it that I could not. I mean, I just told myself, Brooke, you cannot ask to stop. You cannot. So I didn't, but I'm just telling you, like, I would not consider what I got a massage.
No, you got treatment.
I got treatment, which, man, again, like he was very good at his job. And I knew where he was going. I could tell, like, that's to relieve this. I could kind of just tell, like, what the order and everything, like that's to kind of release this thing to move on. But yeah, it was 2 hours of, take a deep breath. But then you don't want to breathe because if you breathe, it hurts. So I was holding my breath most of the
time. You're like, hey, maybe I'll just hold my breath. It doesn't hurt as much. And then maybe I'll die. And then, then I'll be fine too. So,
everyone
sweet
wins.
Release of death. So yeah, awesome.
But I will say today, I'm feeling much better. And that flight, usually the flights the sitting is pretty bad. It was fine. And I'm feeling like, okay, now we're on the mend. Like the soreness is there, but it's like a good sore. And yeah, I remember like yesterday during the Detroit game, I pretty much stood. Like I was like standing the whole time. I felt like back in the day, whenever got those standing desks.
Yeah.
So I just told the Detroit sports reporter next to me, I was like, I don't think this is weird, or I'm like trying to be elite by standing the whole time. It just feels better than
really
sitting.
paying attention to the game when you're standing. I got to say too, like
you sit while you watch games.
When we're on press row and like when the crowd all stands up late in games, if it's close, and everyone has to stand up. I always feel like my most journalistic-y when like I'm standing up, like
totally
with my hands on the table, like looking out over what's going on. I was like, this feels like I'm a real pro right now. Exactly. So, and it just, what I was thinking of too, when you were kind of getting that treatment and going through it, was just to like how much players go through just to play, like, and to, I mean, like, I know that your issue was something different, but like, guys have injuries that are pretty bad and will go through hours of treatment a day just to be able to have a chance to play.
Totally.
And like, that's a level of dedication too, that I think that, I mean, being a professional athlete's a good job. Like, don't get me wrong, but like there's a cost, and particularly in an 82 game season, or I mean, like in football, a 17-week season, it's like these guys are being patched together basically in order to get out there, and like, and they want to, like, they insist upon it, which again just goes to show like the level of focus and determination that it takes to become a professional athlete is
amazing.
Excessive.
I have a new appreciation for it because we see these guys, getting treatment before games, on the road, like practice, all
off days, like
days,
like when we get in, like
day.
A lot of times, like they'll have blackout days, but like even then, like if you got to get treatment, and like that's like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's no, it's like during COVID we had to get tested every day. It was like, no, you can't skip a day. Like you have to do it every single day, and for treatment stuff too. Like I'm sure sometimes it feels good, sure sometimes it doesn't. So
yeah, no, you're totally right. I was thinking that the whole time, laying there, going, man, these guys do this every day. And it's for, like I said, the betterment of their bodies so that they can play it to help the team. And it's, I don't think they're going through 2 hours. It depends on what they're dealing with, but just new appreciation for it, because it's sometimes it's not fun, it's, but it's necessary to improve. and to get better. So yeah, shout out to our staff and players for going through that and making sure that they are diligent about it every day. And I'm just happy to be on the mend.
Yeah, I'm glad you are too. When I saw you on the bus today, I could tell you were feeling better.
Yeah. How are you?
It made me feel. I'm doing great. Yeah, no complaints. I'm out for a run.
I was going to say I was going to bring up your run.
Went out for another run today.
Freezing cold, by the way.
It was obviously cold in Birmingham, where we were coming from. I think it was around 20. But I mean, like once I got out there, like I realized that like I would much rather run in 20 and dry than 50 and wet.
Interesting.
Like I don't like running when my feet are wet.
Who would?
Who? But like that thing when you're running, like once you get going, and it's like the other issue too is the wind. Like, and it wasn't that windy in Birmingham, but there are times when like you're running and then like I did have to stop today for a minute, not because I was tired, but because I was about to lose the contact because like it was windy and like I could tell like and it's cold too, and like a little plastic in that contact like starts to freeze at a certain point in time.
Oh gosh!
So I did have to stop and kind of like move it around a little bit just to make sure I wasn't going to lose it, because losing my contacts on a trip, I'm kind of in between contacts right now, and losing one would have been like, what am I going to do for the rest of the trip? Like, I'm going to have to hold one hand over my eye and
you and I are
do everything when exactly.
I can't walk,
like Brooks, like alms for the poor, like walking with a cane, and I'm like have an eye patch on and like drinking turmeric and ginger nonstop and being weird with everyone all the time.
So funny.
Yeah.
I will say that I knew it was cold out, and I was impressed that you went for your run. But I loved that when I checked the weather app on my phone I put in Detroit. We were in Birmingham, but put it in and it said 23 degrees, but feels like 17.
Feels like 17. Yeah. I think today it was 20 degrees, feels like 11.
Oh,
I was like,
geez.
11 feels a little,
that's
a little much. Yeah. When it starts to get single digits, that's when I think of like the TV reports where like they're outside and like they're pouring water on something. So you're like, look how fast it freezes. Yes. And like, yeah, no, that's or like when they talk about there's a certain low temperature that like your teeth will instantly shatter or something like that. Like I've heard, or like your eyeballs will like explode basically. And these are, in like the Arctic and really cold places, but like there is a certain temperature where it's like things break down, like if you think like the atoms in your body, they're always moving, and like if it freezes to a certain level, they stop moving, then like they collapse.
Oh, I'm really glad your eyeballs didn't blow up.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, speaking of bad things too, I have terrible vision as well. So if my eyeballs did blow up, like maybe I could get a replacement pair, but
I got LASIK and it was the greatest. I remember how blind I was.
Yes.
Oh, I could not. I had back when before I got it, I had to write down, like doing the pre-post and halftime show, I would have to look at the stats or like the graphics ahead of time and write them down in front of me because I didn't trust that I'd be able to read them on the fly. So I actually got LASIK done in one eye. That was the recommendation. So I could still see up close and still see up close in one eye and then afar in the other. And it took a couple days for them to like calculate or whatever the word I'm looking for.
Calibrate.
Yeah. Calibrate. Thank you. And now it's the greatest thing ever. I'm just recommending it to you.
Yes. I think one of these days I might do it, though. I do have another, like, I got to go in. They're afraid maybe I have some kind of like early glaucoma.
Oh God, this has been an uplifting podcast.
This is a great podcast. Yeah, this is the Brooke and Casey ailments podcast. Exactly. Well, let's get to some basketball, because as I mentioned, it has been a pretty good trip. Blazers 1-2 on the trip thus far, but playing some pretty good basketball, I would say. As I mentioned, it started with a 114-106 loss to the Los Angeles Lakers in LA, in a game that, again, I thought the Blazers played pretty well in. They just ran up against LeBron, going 7-10 from three, and had a really good start too. And that's something that I feel like they've been doing a lot lately is getting out to really good starts, which, as Chauncey mentioned yesterday in Detroit, like has been an issue for this team at times. And like, not even just getting off to kind of like rough starts, but like god awful bad starts where it's like, well, the game's not technically over, I guess, but like
hard to get out of that
kind of over. Exactly. So for them to come out and have a good game against the Lakers was a good start to the trip. 23 points for Anthony Simons, who's been playing really good basketball lately as well. It seems like he's starting to feel, I think, kind of like himself again a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think he's maybe, kind of thinking about things and maybe kind of just putting that stuff to the side and just going out and hooping. And I think he's been doing a great job of it. As I mentioned, 23 points for him in that game, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 rebounds. 19 points each for Deni and Shaedon Sharpe. Deni also had a double-double in that game with 19 points and 10 rebounds to go along with 4 assists. Deni as well has been playing phenomenal basketball. Shaedon, as I mentioned, 19 points, 5 rebounds, an assist and a steal in that game. And then 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists for Tumani as well. Then 12 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds for Scoot Henderson. And again, like, shot 50% from the field, shot 35% from 3, shot 81% from the line. Turned the ball over 18 times, which is probably too much, particularly against a team like the Lakers that want to get out in transition, playing without a big man. Basically, this time, I mean, they got Jackson Hayes, but Anthony Davis didn't play, and they don't really have kind of a traditional center. So, it's team's going to get out and run, and particularly if you turn the ball over, you're probably going to have some issues with a team like that. So they weren't able to get that game. But, I think they got it down to they went with that really small lineup with, I think it was Ant, Shaedon, Scoot, Tumani, Deni, and they basically played the entire fourth quarter. And I think it was down to 3 with 2 minutes to play. And, the Lakers end up, I'm not pulling away, but, making the plays they need to make. Blazers, I think, had a 3 taken off the board, or they had been awarded 3 free throws and they got taken back, or the Lakers got awarded. I can't remember exactly what happened, but basically it was a very close game. Blazers had a puncher's chance late in the fourth quarter, just couldn't get it done, though, particularly on the road. It's going to be tough, particularly at Staples, Crypto.com Arena. But again, a good performance, and one that I feel like got them started out on the right path on this road trip.
My favorite part of that game was, which I thought it was a weak call, when Deni got the tee, when he pointed at LeBron.
Oh, for sure.
That was a sweet move, by the way.
It really was.
He just stops on the dime after going 100 miles an hour, as we know he does. And it was LeBron, and I forget who the other defender was, but they just flew by him because they thought they were going to jump up in midair and block him. But LeBron just flew out of bounds. The other guy flew out of bounds, and then Deni was just there all by himself, just boop, puts it in, and does and all it was gotcha.
It was more of a point than finger guns. But there were just 2 people he was pointing to, but when you do both, it's people think it's finger guns. And I don't know if you're allowed to point either way. I think
probably not.
There's some of those things where they're like, you can't do this, in football, you can't spin the ball in front of a guy. Mm-hmm. In basketball, you're not supposed to kind of step over or celebrate in really close proximity. But it was just it wasn't a big, it was and he was, I think he posted it on Instagram. And it was in Hebrew, but I always see caption. And I think he said I forgot myself for a minute or something. And I think basically he was saying, it's I just kind of forgot what I was doing for a half second.
It was reactionary, and it was a great play. He's been flying down.
I call that move the Top Gun.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's what Maverick does. Is
there you go.
Hit the brakes.
But we don't like the word gun. We don't want to say that.
Oh, well, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess it's.
But it was pointing. It
the
really
Maverick.
was. We'll call it the Maverick or the Goose, whatever you want.
Well, it didn't turn out so well for Goose.
No, sorry. Anyway, so that play was great, and I loved the. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but just having fun with it, but being aggressive and then also celebrating a little bit. I get it. Maybe it was in poor taste. I don't think so. I thought
it wasn't. And again, it's one of those things too, where it's no member of the Lakers was how dare Deni do that? Totally. It's one of those things where it's if you're having a good time with it, no one really cares. Now, granted, the rules are the rules. And the NBA is I would say overly concerned about kind of showing up guys. Mm-hmm. And I will say, though, it was nice they didn't call a technical on Deni for his dunk in Milwaukee, where I would say he probably pulled up.
He did a lot of chin up.
He definitely, he didn't, the momentum carried him up and then he stayed up is kind of what I would say. So he didn't technically pull himself up, but he did kind of lock himself there for a second.
The fans disagree.
Yeah, they disagree with that. But also, too, it's it's guys are having fun.
I agree. Yeah. No, I was happy they didn't either because all the fans to my left were like, "That's a T, that's a T." Yeah. I never talked to say anything back, but I was kind of looked back and relax.
Yeah, I
What'd you do?
Well, just in Detroit, there were 2 guys right behind me towards the end of the game that were really bad mouthing Portland, the city, and I was just guys, come on. And then I said some stuff about Detroit being a war zone, and then but it always goes the same way. Which is that guys will say some stuff. I'll turn around and kind of say something crappy too. Yeah. We'll go back and forth for 30 seconds. And then we're I really like your team. And they're I like your team too. And then then you hash it out and then, you shake hands.
That's good.
And that's my standard getting into arguments with fans. I don't do it very often,
Mm-hmm.
but again, when guys are like, if they're making it about the game, fine. But when you're like, exactly, like I do live there, I am from there, like,
and you can talk basketball smack, but that's
exactly,
that's
yeah, like, and they kept calling it Multnomah too, and I was like, it's Multnomah.
That's actually the best thing ever. Like, you don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't ever talk to opposing fans unless I have. This is the only time I will is when they get personal towards like a specific player.
Sure. Yeah.
And if I'm in yours, I mean, if I can say something that, and I'll never like get into it. Like, I will be like, "Do you mind?" Like, you're yelling at a 19-year-old, and I just like to say it very matter of factly. Yeah. Like, just bringing it up. Like, I can hear you, and just so you know, I think it's immature and embarrassing that you're screaming at a 19-year-old. And when they start getting personal, that's why I was like, "Can you just not? Can you just not?" It's just sometimes they're like, "Oh, sorry," even though like
sometimes you do just kind of shake people out of it a little bit, like. And I think I think it's probably a good thing sometimes. Like you get kind of carried. I mean, all of us, anyone who's been to a sporting event, maybe had a few, and like you kind of let yourself go a little bit more than you would otherwise. So yeah, it doesn't having someone being like, "Hey," maybe not checking you, but just being like, are you sure?
Oh yeah,
like,
are you sure?
Yeah.
I remember for some reason, I think just people like to, especially with certain people that anyone that like chooses to scream at players individually from the other team, I think that's just weird. But like if you're having something fun, like with like playful, and maybe like the player even hears you and they're going back and forth. I've seen that happen numerous times all the time. Yeah. And people with Chauncey, they'll talk to him if they're sitting. Because a lot of times opposing teams, on the road sit the same row as the Blazers.
God, those Memphis guys behind the bench in Memphis. Oof.
Yeah.
Those are my least favorite ones. Come on, Chauncey. Come on, coach.
Yeah. And he's a pro, so he he never doesn't ruffle his feathers whatsoever. But what I was gonna say is sometimes the bigger the player, the more excited they are. Like when Carmelo played for us, I probably said things to fans more than any other player not more than any other player. Because they were like so jacked to yell stuff at him. I'm like, I would just be like, do you know you're can you stop yelling at this legend?
I wouldn't say that Amara and I almost got into a fight in Miami when someone was yelling at Carmelo, but she definitely kept like looking at him, and I was like, "It's okay." I was like,
I wish she would. I would love to Amara turn around.
But it and like he just kept saying like the same stupid thing over and over and over again. It's like, dude, can you just stop already? Like,
get creative.
Yeah, exactly. And and also too, it's always like, and you're going to ask for his autograph after.
I think that's what I mean. That's the funniest part is when they actually like when they're yelling at a player, and maybe that after the game the player stops and is like, really? They're like, just kidding.
Yeah, then it's like, no, you're my favorite player. I love you. Yeah,
I know. I'm like, I have heard that so many
love and hate
times.
are very close associated.
And that's the same on Twitter. I feel like when people call out like an athlete and then they respond, they're like, no, man, I'm all love.
Yeah,
it's all love.
They're
just like, I can't believe you responded. I can't believe you saw it. Well, that's what was your goal.
Yeah. And speaking too about LA and fans, like a lot of Deni fans in Los Angeles.
Oh my gosh, we met the two biggest. Well, everyone says they're the biggest Deni fan that ever Deni fans. Just like we're talking about Shaedon, 14-year-old girls. Every 14-year-old girl is Shaedon's number one fan. And we've talked about this, but how I was been approached by a few that listen to the podcast. Yes. Like, no, I really am his number one fan.
Yeah, no, actually, I am.
But no, Deni fans are passionate. We talked to a couple that flew to watch him. They went to New York, I think they said, and then Las Vegas, and then they added this trip. Or they added their trip to LA so that they could watch Deni, and they were how passionate was he? He raced over to us.
Oh yeah, no, he wanted to let you know. He saw you were with the Blazers.
Yes,
he was like, this person needs to know that I am here to see Deni from a long ways away.
I think it's written down here. Rossi was his name, or we follow each other on Instagram now because we took a picture together. He was very passionate, and he's like, that's my wife. We came just to watch Deni. We love him. And so why do you love him so much? And he's like, he represents, people from Israel. That's where they're from. And it's just, you don't see someone, in the basketball world see as much success as him. And he represents us. And it was huge. The passion was like, wow. And I will say that every other, fan I meet on the road or at home, Portland too, they love him and what he represents. And the passion is so real. So yeah, we did run into. There were a lot of Blazers fans on all these trips so far.
We always have a lot of fans in Milwaukee. We always have a lot of fans in Detroit too.
Milwaukee, there were a ton. Yeah. I talked to. I went and tried to talk to as many as I can before the game. And a couple. Oh, there's a dad and his son who went to. They went to the Milwaukee game, and I waved to them there, but I didn't get a chance to talk to them. Then I saw him at Detroit, and I woke up. I was like, "Wait, did I not just see you in Milwaukee?" He's like, "Yeah, and we'll see you in New Orleans."
Oh, wow!
I was like, "Stop it!"
Awesome.
And I said, "Stop it!"
Get him on the team playing. Shoot,
no
why
kidding.
not?
They were so sweet, so cute, and I can't remember their names. I'm so bad. But
Well, I do. Since we're talking, I want to shout out Josh real fast. He was in Detroit last night. He's been to a couple games throughout the years. I think he said he met us, I think, in Milwaukee a few years ago.
Yes.
He was wearing, I think, a Shaedon Sharpe PDX carpet jersey in Detroit. And he said he'd never seen the Blazers on the road lose. Unfortunately, we didn't lose the game in the Pistons. But I did tell people, I was like, hey, if we win this game, that guy over there told me he's never seen a loss on the road. So, like, make sure that, like, if we happen to win this game, get him on camera or something. Like, so, but yeah, no, great fan support throughout this entire trip, which is always fun too. Like, it's always cool to see kind of people on the road say hello. So
it's my favorite because they all have different stories. Sometimes they are born and raised in Portland, and then they moved there for work or whatever, but they're still rabid fans. The other night, I asked this young couple. They were both rocking. One was a Shaedon Sharpe, one was a Scoot Henderson jersey, and I was like, I usually start with, how are you fans? Are you from Portland? And they're like, no, we've never lived in Portland. Just about like 6 or 7 years ago, we caught a game. We're like, I like this vibe, and we've done die hard. I've never even been to Portland.
So, yeah, some people just pick a team and are like, this is going to be the team I'm going to follow, which I think is like one of the best ways to be a fan. Like, I think it's cool to be like, no, I'm just deciding. Like, yeah, I saw this team one time, or there was like some small connection. And
or they played them on 2K.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go with this. So I always think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. And they all have a different story. And it's passionate nonetheless. No matter if again, I was like, so have you come to the game? They're like, no, we've never been to Portland.
Yeah,
but we want to. It's on the bucket list. But they knew everything. They knew. They were very passionate.
Yeah,
I loved that.
Well, after we stayed in Los Angeles, which also too, since Brooke's going to talk about her back, the bus we were on, we have to have police escorts in LA because of the traffic, and so we got a couple Chips motorcycle cops that are leading the bus through kind of downtown Los Angeles, and a driverless car apparently doesn't recognize when a police officer is in a motorcycle telling it to stop.
I didn't realize that was.
So the driverless car doesn't stop. So the bus has to slam on the brakes, and I'm just kind of like half sitting up in my seat, and they have to slam the brakes so hard that I get thrown into the seat in front of us. And on buses, sometimes they have like a little handle on the seat in front of you, so you can kind of to brace yourself. But in this situation, what that handle did was give me something to ram into.
Oh.
So I got thrown into that handle, and I've had a bruise on my chest the thickness of that handle for like 4 days now. And like it really hurt.
I can tell you don't often say like things really hurt. I mean, that's the most recent thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a wuss, but I kind of keep it to myself generally. But yeah, like this, I was like, this. I
could tell.
This, and I was like, if this hurts a little bit more, I'm filing a claim against somebody. But it went away. Yeah, exactly. I think it was. Well, I won't say what company it was, but those driverless car companies have to have money and insurance up the yin yang. So
that's true.
I probably could have sponsored this podcast myself if I had made a complaint. But
I never thought about driverless cars not seeing. I figured they would see everything. They don't see police.
Well, I mean, but if you kind of think about it, like a driverless car has to be taught that if you see a person in the street, it's probably just trying to miss the person. It's not necessarily recognizing when a cop is putting its hand out that like, oh, I'm supposed to stop here.
Oh, okay.
Because that's like a really elevated a bit of logic for a machine to figure out. Sure. And unless it's been in that situation, which also too, it's like, how often does a driverless car come against a situation where a bus is getting escorted by a police escort? Like probably not very often. So they don't get a chance to practice those situations, and they end up running through. And we go through red lights, we go through stop signs, but that's the whole thing. We have a police escort. That's what we get to do. And the driverless car was like, no, I don't care if you guys are a professional team.
I don't
care if there's cops right here.
I don't
care. I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving this empty cab somewhere else, and if it's going to crash your bus, so be it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, yeah, we're a hot mess this trip.
We are, Brooke. So we stayed in Los Angeles, board an early flight to Milwaukee, which usually we don't have to leave that early but you don't usually leave after a game when you're heading east because you lose hours. And so we do get to Milwaukee, see our good friend Damian Lillard and have a nice visit, and then the next day The Portland Trailblazers pull up to Fiserv Arena and defeat the Milwaukee Bucks 105-102. Once again, thanks to a great game from Anthony Simons, 28 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds in 41 minutes. 43 minutes for Deni, 19 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. Another great Deni game there, 15 points, 15.6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal for Toumani Camara, who did a fantastic job defending Dame late in the game, forced a turnover, forced a really tough shot that did not go in. I thought Toumani really kind of, low-key defensively, really had an impact. I mean, not even low-key, high-key had a really big impact in that game. 10 points, 13 rebounds for DeAndre Ayton, another guy too, who Chauncey really singled out for praise after that game, saying that the way that the Bucks play, when you're a center, he's rolling to the rim, but they always get a tag on you. So you don't usually get a free clean look at the basket. But DeAndre kept doing what he was supposed to do anyways, was setting great screens, getting guys open, and that really helped the team. And then 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists for Shaedon Sharpe. So the Blazers again, and that one jump out to a decent sized lead. Bucks reel it back in. I think third quarter, the Bucks, or going into the fourth, I think the Bucks may be up by 1. And the Blazers end up pulling that game out in the fourth quarter. Anthony Simons, as we mentioned again, gets a really good look at the basket, gets an and one that the NBA then said should not have been an and one, but tough beans, NBA Bucks. The game's already over. Which also too, you watch that replay, it's Bobby Portis. That's a foul. Or if nothing else, that's not a foul that you look at and say that contact was not enough. It's dude, he got him with his whole body. He wasn't vertical. It's Bobby Portis. I'm sorry, who you are matters. It does. You have, it's the way it goes. If you're going to get the benefit of the doubt when you're a star player and good things are going to happen, you're going to get the benefit of the non-doubt, or you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt when you're a player that plays physical sometimes. And so he gets that free throw, and then I think maybe hit 2 more free throws, or Deni hit 2 free throws at the end of the game. Either way, the Blazers end up winning that one by 3. Dame takes a last-second three-pointer, does not find the mark, which the NBA also said that was not a foul on Toumani. He said that that one was incidental conduct as well. So the Blazers end up winning that one for their 12th win of the season and their first win of 2025, and their first win on the road since mid-November. So just a very fun game. It's always nice, to see, former players, but it's always really nice to get wins against former players too. So that was a fun game for the team. And I think, really it's something I talk about over and over and over again. When you're a young team, you're trying to get better, sometimes it's a little bit difficult if you're not seeing kind of the fruits of your success. But when you get some wins every now and then, it's okay, yeah, we're making progress. We're figuring things out here a little bit. So to get a win against a good Milwaukee Bucks team, I think just does a whole lot for the team's confidence. And again, particularly when you're a guy like Ant, you're going up against a guy who you spent so much time with and then have looked up to for so many years. I think that's always fun when the when the teacher becomes the student.
Absolutely. And I think maybe we got another, we have another game this year when Milwaukee comes to town. And I think that it is fun, but I think Ant's kind of ready for that to thing anymore. No,
for sure. Yeah.
He's okay, because we talked about it, and it's still, I believe, the storyline at this point, but as we move forward, with that game, and next year, I think it's more about okay, we don't have to, talk about that as much anymore. But as someone, and you and I have covered Dame for so long that it's just, it's a big deal to us, and I know it is to him too. But as we move forward, I think that it'll be more about it's just the game. It's just the game. And,
if Ant had a bad game, I wouldn't have talked to him afterwards.
That's true. But no, it's fun. It's always good to see him, and it was fun to just catch up with him, and see how he's doing and his kids and all that. And it's always nice to see him. But then, of course, you wanted to win that game, and for Anthony, I was really, really happy for him that he had such a great performance. And then he's just been, I know we talk about it in the broadcast a lot, the top 10 in clutch minutes, but you can see, and we'll talk about the Detroit game as well, but you can just see late in the fourth quarter, and even just the fourth quarter in general, he's been putting the team on his back. Yeah. He's looking for his shot. He wants it, and he's told me numerous times, walk-offs, and I can't be afraid of the moment. And opposite of, he's not been afraid. He wants the moment, and it's been fun to watch because he's not the most vocal leader in the world, but that's just leadership in itself too, when you're okay, I'm not going to let my team lose this game.
Yeah.
And you can see that in his eye, the last couple of games, especially okay, this is my time. And that's a big deal for Anthony. So I'm very happy for him, especially that it resulted in a win, because we'll talk about the Detroit game, but what a night he had. Another fantastic follow-up performance, and then of course they just came up short. But that was a very entertaining game from beginning to end. It had a lot of pomp and circumstance for reasons I'm sure we'll get into, but just entertaining matchup.
Absolutely. And so we were in, so we get to Detroit or Birmingham, I should say, and end up staying 3 nights at the hotel there. And not nearly as nice as the hotel at Spirit Mountain Casino, though, where a variety of rooms, from lavish premium suites to charming classical standards, will get you squared away at the hotel at Spirit Mountain Casino. They have a room for everybody, Brooke Olzendam.
Mm-hmm.
They have all the essentials from high-speed Wi-Fi to 24-hour front desk service. You can choose the room that best suits to book for your stay, Brooke Olzendam, at Spirit Mountain Casino, Highway 18 in Grand Ronde. Elevate your game, Spirit Mountain Casino. Though I also, too, have to say that maybe I was do we have confirmation about your billboard not being there anymore?
We have not confirmed.
Okay, because some people who would be in a position to know seem to not know that it wasn't there. So that got me thinking that maybe I was wrong that it's not there.
I'll send some text.
Yeah. Well, so if you happen to be at Spirit Mountain Casino,
let us know.
Let us know. 1, 2, because you made a great decision by elevating your game at Spirit Mountain Casino. But 2, I also need to know, and Brooke needs to know, if the Damian Lillard Toyota billboard, which has Brooke's visage on it, in a very I like any billboard where they do something that goes outside of the billboard.
Mm-hmm.
So Brooks is her whole
head to toe
is on top of it. So do you know how tall that is, by the way, too?
I'm
because
really bad at
that's
stuff.
the other thing too, is that if it's not there anymore, they should at least given you an option to take your part of it.
What would I do with
I don't know, but I would want it if it was me. I would at least want right of first refusal to be I actually would like that. I think that'd be
I barely have enough storage in my house for what I do.
You could put it in your garage. You
so
could
much
put
in
it
my garage,
in
right?
you could maybe put it around a backboard or the pole of a basketball board,
I didn't think
or you have that new fence, you just put it across the side of the fence,
the front of my house, on the front of my fence.
Why don't you just advertise where your house is at?
Well,
too,
what's funny,
which would make your mom really happy too.
I was going to say,
sorry, yeah.
My mom, that's really funny. So I had, you guys have seen, I'm sure, the Rip City Runs Deep, those things you put in your front yard.
Yeah, I have one.
I grabbed a couple, put in my front yard. No doubt within, 2 hours, my mom would come by. She pulled that baby out.
Oh.
She's like, you cannot have, what if someone, no, what are you doing? I was like, oh, jeez, Mom. So it's no longer in my front. It lasted a couple hours. No, she's like, she's so funny. She's my mom. It's what moms do.
She's very concerned about you lately, I feel like.
Lately, especially, yeah. But I don't know why. I mean, it's all the time, but especially a little bit more. Mom, thank you for your concern. I love you.
Yes.
You're right. I just really liked them.
And it is important to be careful, there are a lot of weirdos out there. She's not wrong, but
yeah. Well, when I Uber, I always Uber to my neighbors and then get out, and I look like I'm walking. And I'm sorry to my neighbor if anything happens to you because they're trying to kill me.
there was a guy today at the hotel who was delivering DoorDash or whatever. I don't know. It was one of the food deliveries, and I can always tell when. It's not hard because the players stand their pseudonyms, and anytime you see a guy at the front desk being like, I can't figure out where I'm supposed to go with this. They said this name, but it's not here, and so I'm riding the elevator with him. I want to be because I know they use
Pseudonyms.
A pseudonym. And I know usually they conform. They're a specific thing, and I wanted to be are you looking? I can't even say it without giving it away, but basically I feel like I can always tell when one of the players is getting food delivered and they can't figure out which one it is because they're not under the real name.
Right.
And so I don't know if players have their DoorDash pseudonyms the same as their road hotel pseudonyms.
Well, that would be a lot of work because then when you're
it would
at
be,
home,
which makes me think they're not doing that.
No, I don't think they're doing that.
The players in that kind of work
because they order at home. They
Yeah.
order at home too. So I bet they're just well, we'll figure it out. They'll have the driver or the deliverer will have to figure it out.
There was someone where it was a more veteran player, a younger player, and myself, and they were talking about food delivery, and the player was saying they use their real name, and the veteran player was like, "What? Are you insane? You have to use a different name. You can't use your own name." And I was like, listen to this man.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
you're going to come down with food poisoning one of these days, and you're going to wonder what happened. And it's because someone saw your name and was like, hey, okay.
That's very true. Tonight? That's very
Especially
true.
now with gambling.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
There's money to be made out there. I appreciate you keeping an eye on the practice, Brooke, in case we have to break up here early. So, as I mentioned, Trailblazers get to Detroit and then play the Pistons. Chauncey Billups' former team where, he was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. And this is the first time he'd been back since that Hall of Fame induction. A lot of love for Chauncey. Trailblazers play a great game, score the first 17 points of the second quarter. At that point, you're feeling real good about Portland's chances, but it is the NBA. Runs do happen. Portland ends up falling 118-115 to a Pistons team that is vastly improving, thanks in large part to 32 points from Cade Cunningham.
He's so good.
He is very good, and he's kind of figured out how to play. And also Tim Hardaway Jr., 26 points. 10 of 15 shooting from the field, 6 of 9 from three.
He came on strongly.
Great game as well. That's all he did. No rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks, no turnovers. He had one foul, but he got up 15 shots.
Hey,
that's getting buckets, man. That's a former player's kid right there. It's about basketball is about scoring, and that's what Tim Hardaway Jr. does. A really good game for the Trailblazers. Again, just to. They had a chance to maybe tie the game late in the game and had the ball, turnover, weren't able to get a final shot. So that was a bit of a bummer. But otherwise, again, a game you feel really good about. 36 points, 9 assists from Anthony Simons, 20 points, 8 assists, a career-high 8 assists, 2 steals, 1 block for Shaedon Sharpe in 43 minutes. I thought Shaedon was funny in the locker room, too, when he found out he had 8 assists, which, Shaedon doesn't know what he's got until the end of the game and someone tells him. And he was like, he's like, I got 8 assists tonight. And it's like, yeah, Shaedon got 8 assists. He's like, well, yeah, these guys can't say I don't pass anymore. And I was like, yeah, you're right, Shaedon, you do. Like, good for you.
That's funny.
DeAndre Ayton, 18 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists in 35 minutes to go with a block as well. And then Kris Murray coming off the bench, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block in 27 minutes for Kris Murray. I thought it was a fun interaction with Kris post game. When he was talking, we were asking him, how do you come into games and just be ready to go?
Stay
Because,
ready.
sometimes, you're in, you're out. I know you're playing those stay ready games. Like, but especially like when you're just coming in, like just shooting right off the bench, like how do you do that? And Kris is like, well, I put a heating pad on my hand to keep it warm. And like, Kris isn't really a guy who would he would joke, but like, he's not a kind of guy I don't think that would like, be like, oh yeah, I'm joking around about it. So I was trying to suss out of it being honest, and then I was like, oh yeah, he has been. And I was like, oh, what a fun idea is that he puts a heating pad on his shooting hand, so that way it's warm and ready to go when he's getting to the game. And and he's been doing a great job with that too. And I just feel like Kris as well, really lately, I feel like he's been doing such a great job.
Such a great steady Eddie.
Yeah.
No, it's funny when I felt the same way when he said that. I knew he was, because he has a dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so he has a smirk, and you're like, but kind of always a little smirk. So after he said that, we asked a couple more questions. I was like, I have to follow up on this. And I was like, wait, so is this like an NBA trick that I've just never noticed anyone doing? He's like, no, it's just me. I don't know. So I have never noticed him doing that. But I'm also not, clocking Kris Murray at the end of the bench during games. So I'm usually sitting behind them. So from now on, we need to get a shot of that. And during the broadcast, so I can explain, this is what he's doing. He is heating his hands to stay ready, because those are the fun things that I think are like fans love to find out about, hear about.
And as soon as he said that too, I was like, Brooke can do a segment on that at some point in time. So I figured that'll probably happen on this road trip. And I was like, yeah, what a fun little story to be able to,
especially after that game, the Detroit game, which I was so pleased for him. And we talked about the and one with him where he went down hard and, looked at his wrist. And then he said he thought he popped his shoulder. He didn't say pop his shoulder out. He's like, I had to check to see.
Yeah, he was like, I looked at it real fast, and I was like, good grief. Yeah, like,
you had to look at it.
If that had been me, I'd been like, I'm not looking at it.
Exactly.
Like, someone else tell me. Like, is it still there?
Yeah.
Is it out of joint?
Hey, question for you while I'm down here. No, he said, that he got up and he was fine. But just watching him, he's just, like I said, steady Eddie. He doesn't get too high, too low. Lamar talks about it on the broadcast all the time, Mr. Perfect. Like, he just does things the right way. He's always ready. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, if any, of course, everyone makes mistakes, but he really does things, the way he's been coached and by the book, and he makes the right choice for the most part. So watching him be able to not just do that, which he does anyways, but then like get rewarded a little bit with, scoring. I think he had a couple assists, finding his teammates. And then that play was, a big one at that moment. It felt big. And he had played, I mean, you probably have like 27
minutes.
27
yeah.
minutes. Okay. I was clocking it because I was like, I think he's going to play more than 25 minutes, which, it's like starter status at that point. Not starting, but still, that's a lot of minutes. But then Anthony got hot because I was thinking, and this is how my mind works. We've talked about it a lot like on this podcast. I'm thinking, who will be the walk-off interview if we win? And I have to only have these conversations in my mind. And I talk to Greg about it sometimes too, but we try to not get ahead of ourselves and jinx it, even though that's not a thing. But so I was thinking this could be a great Kris Murray walk-off, but then Ant just lost his mind.
Yeah.
And then, we didn't.
And we lost anyways. So
we lost anyways, but that was fun to think about. I was like, this could be a Kris. And so coming off that one into New Orleans, I would love to see just him pick up where he left off and have like back-to-back games where he's a huge contributor because he was. And yeah, he's just fun to talk to. I really enjoy him.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Everyone loves Kris.
Everyone loves Kris. Yeah. Well, and I just noticed too that Deni is hitting the injury report with a sprained wrist. It sounds like he's questionable. And so if he doesn't play, then Kris might even get the start at that point in time, you would imagine too. So, I hope Deni's able to play. And it looked like at practice that it looked like he would probably be okay. Though Deni didn't have his greatest game versus Detroit, but it was still a pretty game. But he didn't only play 29 minutes actually. So you imagine that Kris playing 27 minutes to kind of eat into that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so if Deni's not able to go for whatever reason, if that wrist injury, which I saw him get work on it in practice, same guy that would work on your back. Mm-hmm. If that is the case, then at that point in time, yeah, Kris. And Kris started before. He started a bunch of games last season. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, he's done a really good job of not only staying ready too, but you talk about him being kind of a contrite guy. Like he just doesn't complain about it. Like I think other guys, I'm sure there's times where he's like, I wish I was in there, but it doesn't ever seem like it lets him affect him. It sure doesn't let it affect his play because every time he's called, he does the right things. So, so the Blazers do end up losing that one by 3. But a fun night, too, because, as we mentioned, Chauncey Billups coming back into town. And actually, the other thing, too, Blazers shoot 53% from the field and 45% from 3 and lose that game, which, again, when you do that well, you like to win the game. Though, the part that I think none of us really kind of realized, or at least I didn't really realize till the end of the game, Blazers only shot 5 free throws in that game.
We were talking about it during the
broadcast. Pistons shot 22 free throws in that game. Which someone posted a stat that said that Ant has now got the 7th most 30-point games without a free throw because Ant did not shoot a free throw in that game. Almost no one did. Tamani shot 1 free throw and missed it. It must have been an and one.
No, they were all and one.
They were all and ones. You're right. Yeah. Good grief.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Tom Haberstroh did a Haberstat. He's
he did.
You won't believe this.
Yeah.
They have not shot 2 free throws. They're all and ones.
Was he able to pull when that's happened last? Because I don't even know what the search terms would be for something like that. But,
he would be able to. If
anyone was going to do it, it'd be Tom. Yeah,
he didn't have a comparison or anything, but it was just you just don't see that very often.
It's a bad thing when you're only shooting 5 free throws and they're all on made buckets all on made buckets. Good God, that's ridiculous. And I even gave Ed Malloy a little bit of props in that game too, and now I regret it. Stupid me. By the way, I like that they're listing Jeremy Grant as DNP face.
I know.
Is what it's listed as.
Face. In the face.
And for a guy like Jeremy too, he does serve face, yeah, but I don't really think that's exactly. I asked about that too. It sounds like Jeremy's getting close. So hopefully that he'll be back sometime in the not too distant future. Because it'd be nice. Though, again, the team's playing well right now, and some of those younger guys are getting an opportunity. So, that's not a bad thing either. Real quick, though, too, I wanted to mention, Brooke, since you did just mention the broadcast, kind of interesting broadcast situation for you on this trip in that you've been working with different play-by-play guys. Kevin not on the trip. Mm-hmm. So we had Zora Stephenson called the first 2 games, and now Jace Benetti called the game versus the Pistons, and we'll call the next 2 games versus the Pelicans and Mavericks. Which, is a little bit different, that's kind of to kind of have some different people on the broadcast crew throughout the year is not a, I won't say it's irregular, but it's not super common or anything. Yeah. So how's that been going?
It's been good. It's so I've known Zora. It's funny. I met her at the NBA symposium, which is where broadcaster, it was in New York City. I want to say 7 years ago. I think it was 7 years ago. And she was just getting into the business. And so it was Sarah Kustok, who works for the Nets, who was amazing. me and there's someone else. Anyway, we're at a table. Like they had like little breakouts where it was just that one role. So most of it's like all the broadcasters, producers, directors in a big room and just kind of doing, having people speak and the referee speak and everything. But then they had like little breakout sessions where it's just your role. And Zora was just starting off and she was asking a million questions, rightfully so, which we appreciate. We're like, please, yeah. She's like, is it okay if I ask you some questions? I'm just getting into this. And so we just sat with her after it ended and just chatted about like how our experience and how we approach a game, blah, blah, blah. So that was Kustak as a sideline reporter. She is now analyst on the Nets. But so we were just talking about how we approach sideline reporting. Fast forward to, she's killing it. She's left the Bucks to go work for NBC solely. So she does a lot of different things now and she's doing great. And so when I saw that she was doing it, we texted. I'm like, this is how cool is this? Yeah, full circle. So she's great. And I think that Lamar is really a testament to Lamar because he really does a good job of like welcoming them in. Yeah. And like he talked about her, experience covering like LeBron for the Olympics. So like he's really good at like bringing up people's, not to say accolades, but like getting them involved and kind of making them, have to talk with themselves a little bit so that the fans can get to know him. And then Jason Benetti, who I had heard wonderful things about, like Sarah Kustak, back in my stories, she texted me. She's like, you're going to love him. He's the best. And, heard that from a bunch of people. And he was awesome. He was funny. He was like seamless. Like he and Lamar just like clicked right away. And he was and then I saw him this morning or this afternoon, we were walking to the elevator. I said, you just did a fantastic job last night. Like really it was easy. It was not just easy to listen to. It was fun to listen to. You were very entertaining. Obviously, the game. And he had this line, which we were talking about earlier, that really just cracked me up, where it was a weird play where everyone thought it was like a dead ball, but it wasn't. And everyone stopped and like wasn't sure. And then and then they kept playing. He's like, wow, it's like a scene out of Saved by the Bell where they all get frozen. And I'm over here in the corner, just dying laughing. The Pistons sideline reporter standing next to me. And he's at this point thinks I'm a psycho because I've been standing the whole time. Then I almost fall off my chair because my pleather pants. It was a whole thing. And then
that's right. You did the. You told me you did the face
plant. I tried to get off my stool, but my legs wouldn't. My legs wouldn't move because I was wearing pleather pants. They got stuck to the chair. So with all my might, I went to stand up and the chair just fell forward and my face went straight into the monitor. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he's like, are you okay? I was like, my pants got stuck to the chair. He's like, I thought you were having a coronary. I'm like, I'm sorry.
You would think that pleather pants, like in theory, they look like slick, but no, they're not. Yeah,
they're
tacky.
They're tacky. They tax to the.
Well, I guess like if you ever like sit on like a leather couch with like bare skin, you're like, oh yeah, this is gross.
It was quite funny. Like we both died laughing, but then I was just losing it over the Saved by the Bell comment. And he's like, are you guys like, our broadcast is being really funny right now. And so I told him that this morning and he's like, oh, thank you so much. I've been watching a ton of your broadcasts and I could kind of get the vibe that you guys are really chill and you like to have fun. I'm like, oh, you have to have fun. He's like, so it felt like a perfect fit for me. So I could just come in and I knew that I could just kind of bop things off you guys and you'd have fun with it. And it was kind of relaxed and just fun. I'm like, well, we're happy to have you. So he was great, and we have him for New Orleans and Dallas. And I got to tell you, a lot of people on Twitter were like, they must like probably watch football and baseball and all the other sports he does because he just came from an NFL game,
right? Yeah,
the Colts game, and so it was fun. Like people that I follow were like, Jason Benetti is calling my Blazers. Wow, dream come true. Just fun stuff for people that probably watch a lot of other sports that he does. But no, it's been great. Of course we miss Kevin. Kevin's the best,
of course.
But Lamar, props to him for being very welcoming and making them feel. We all made them feel at home, but that really falls on Lamar the most.
And especially too, like when you work with someone for a while, particularly when it's broadcasting or talking, like you kind of recognize like they're it's a teamwork thing. You're working together, so you develop a chemistry there and a familiarity. And then if there's someone new coming in, you got to kind of switch up a little bit. So for Lamar to be able to do that as well as he has, I think has been great. And obviously to step into a situation too where you're calling games, the team that you've probably done research on and you've probably done some practice, but until you're calling the game and things are happening pretty fast, and the NBA is a fast game too, so it's not an easy job. So for both those two to come in and step in and do a good job, I think is great. So shout out to them. Nice work. And Kevin will be back on the start when we get back to Portland. But it's been a nice little change. Yeah, and different people on the road. So it's it's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. Yeah. No, it's been fun. And again, great people and just want to come in and do a good job. And very, like, they did their homework. That's kind of what I don't say I look for, but I'm like, I'm curious, like, do they know these players? No, they can't know them as well as we do.
Right.
But both knew a lot about it. But then it's kind of fun because, like, even like the other night, Jason Benetti said something about, like, Tumani, like, he was even surprised by a play. And he's like, that's what Tumani does. Like, Lamar's like, that's what Tumani does. So they know, but, like, still it's fun to have, like, kind of Lamar, like, teaching, like.
Sure.
Like,
well, and, sometimes, like, I know that, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. You covered this team for a while. I've been doing this for a long time. Sometimes, like, when you do something for a while, like, it kind of becomes familiar and you don't, I won't say appreciate it as much, but, like, maybe things that other people would be like, wow, like, for you is kind of old hat.
Sure.
And so you don't maybe bring the same level of, like, enthusiasm or just, like, I think sometimes when you have fresh eyes, like, it just gives you the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, that is kind of a cool thing. Yeah, let's make sure to re-mention that again.
Yeah,
so
like, you get accustomed to watching Tumani take charges every night,
right? And so
who doesn't watch every single night be like, wow, that guy really puts his body on the line, and Lamar would be like, that's what he does.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they talk more about it. It was good.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, all told, again, it's been a good trip. Obviously, still 2 more games to go. But once you get to the back-to-back portion of a trip, too, particularly when we end on a back-to-back, it's like it's super fast at that point. So we're here in New Orleans now, and we'll. Trailblazers will be facing our good old buddy CJ McCollum and the rest of the Pelicans. It sounds like Zion is back, though they're playing tonight, so it's Tuesday. So they're playing a back-to-back. We're the second of a back-to-back for them. My gut tells me that Zion's probably not playing back-to-backs, but I guess we'll find out when we get to the arena on Wednesday afternoon.
Well, it has felt like a lot of prominent players on teams have been out until it's time to play the Blazers, and then they come back that night. So it's not. We deserve that if he's not going to play that. I think it's
well, and Blazers have had some success against the Pelicans this year, so hopefully able to. And then you got the Mavericks, who are missing a whole bunch of players now. So and the game in Dallas wasn't all that close, but the first game where they were also missing guys in Portland was a very close game. So I think a couple of legitimate chances to get a few more wins on this road trip. And again, they could have easily won that Pistons game. They could have, if a few things go their way, they could have won that Lakers game too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not saying they were going to go undefeated on this trip,
but they could have.
But and it's not. They weren't that far off, I guess. And for a team that has had some road trips the last couple of years where we go out and it's like, oof, boy, like maybe we should just go home, like. To have this trip, the first extended trip of 2025, be have some good basketball in it, I think it's a good thing, and it's been fun to watch, and it's always better. It's always better to watch fun basketball and good basketball than bad basketball, particularly when on the road. Like you're out and you're like, man, we're out here and we're going to be out here for another X amount of days, and it's like, and we're getting beat like this,
but we're not.
But we're not, and to end it on a high note, like I think it's. Even when you're not winning all those games, like just to see good games and see progress and have different guys kind of have nights in different situations like that, particularly for us content folks, like that's cool. It's helpful, and again, it makes the trip go fast, and it makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, like you're not out here just spinning your wheels, like you're actually like there's a reason to be out here. So that's what this trip has felt like to me, which is great. So I think that's going to do it on this edition of the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. We will be back next week, and that's all I'll say. Again, games on Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'll be back late Thursday night. I think Friday off, and then we have a game on Saturday. It feels like they're probably not going to give us more than 1 day off after having all that time off in December. So I'm not even going to. Am I going to? We'll play another game sometime this weekend. If it's not Saturday, we'll play Sunday. So until we talk to you again, thanks so much for joining us. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast, to the Blazers Balcony, to the podcast that I do, and to Section 113 with Travis and Michael Holton on the Trailblazers Audio Network. Good start to 2025, Brooke. Happy 2025 to you. And to you listening this home, that will do it for this edition. Brooke.
Peace out.